So thanks to the wonderful new streaming service, HBO Max, which we'll get to later, just remember it for now, I finally got to see Singing in the Rain, and like most classics, I was once again late to the party on this one. However, this gave me the chance to watch this fantastic, incredible movie for the first time in 2020, which was in fact a very magical experience. There are very few times where a movie that is hyped to this level actually lives up to its expectations for me, and this one definitely came through. Surprisingly enough, though, the biggest takeaway I took from this movie wasn't necessarily the things I already knew about it. I knew it was a very colorful film for its time. I knew the whole song and dance of Make 'Em Laugh. I knew that La La Land often gets blamed for being too similar to this movie, and of course I knew the title song far too well.
Singing in the rain.
However, the one thing about this movie that I wasn't actually familiar with was the plot. IMDb describes it as a silent film production company and cast makes a difficult transition to sound. Now, in my defense, with the title of Singin' in the Rain and those things I listed off about this movie, I don't know how people were supposed to know that this was what the movie was about. However, this was by far the most interesting thing about this movie to me. Maybe because, sure, yeah, I'm a sucker for Hollywood making movies about Hollywood. But this film does so much more. It tells this really interesting part of Hollywood history, the golden age of film, in the silent movies that we all knew and love, and how the whole industry had to transition into this new way of making movies. This was by far a very significant moment in film history, and there are very few, if any, that can match its significance. Some other moments that could possibly compare would be the addition to color in film, the ever-progressive animation, and then also computer animation, and of course techniques like CG and CGI being consistently upgraded even today. I even think about other transitions that the movie industry as a whole has gone through. You think of how television had an impact of people going out to the movies, you look at how blockbusters really got their start, and then you get into home video, which went to DVD, which went to Blu-ray, which is now streaming and digital downloads. Hollywood has always been a very progressive industry, and a movie like Singin' in the Rain really hits that home. Now, surprisingly, when this movie came out, it's described as only being a modest hit when it was first released. It was nominated for 2 Oscars, which it lost both, and it made back its budget and then some, but it was nothing really to write home about. It wasn't until years later where it is now being regarded as the greatest musical film ever made. In 1998, it reached number 10 in the AFI's top 100 movies, and then later in 2007, they bumped it up to number 5. Clearly, on initial release, audiences and critics already saw everything that we saw within this movie when it came to the song, the dance, the colors, you name it. Now, surely it being adapted to a Broadway musical in the 80s definitely had part of making this more popular, but I do think a big part of this becoming more popular over time is the farther that we get away from the historical event that this movie is portraying, the more we can appreciate its take on film history. Take The Artist, for example. This was another movie that captured this event, the event of Hollywood going from silent films to quote-unquote talkies. This movie came out in 2011, and let me tell you, it definitely made back its budget. It also won 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. I know, this is comparing apples to oranges, but it is very fascinating that these are 2 very different movies covering the same exact subject, and the end result, now looking at both of those movies in this present day, they are almost universally praised. And it's understandable why people enjoy this subject so much. Not only because Hollywood likes movies about Hollywood, but this event specifically is a very interesting one that we see repeated over and over throughout the history of Hollywood. The transition to sound was an adjustment for an entire industry and also an audience as well. When movies were first around for the first 20 years of their existence, movies were a place to go to just watch a moving picture, essentially. There was often live music, you got to hang out, talk during the movie, and then the transition to sound came and a lot of it changed. For the audience, there was no talking during the movies. You actually had to listen to what the actors were saying. This would require new studios to film these movies in because they weren't soundproof, so they didn't take into account all the noise outside of the room they were filming. There was all sorts of new equipment as well The microphones they had no idea where to put. They would just stick them in flower pots or wherever they could hide them to try to get the best sound. So not only did everyone's jobs get more complex, but also the musicians that would play music for the silent films live also lost a lot of their jobs. So where are we at now with Hollywood? Well, as I cannot emphasize enough on this channel, it has been such a hard year for movies. I almost wanted to cry the other day looking at a list of movies that I should have seen by now. Now more than ever, we are so uncertain what the future holds or when we can even go to the theaters again. Which is why I'm convinced more than ever that this is another huge transition in the industry of Hollywood and films. Now there has been such a push the past few years for streaming, and we have seen more and more big name directors and actors and producers transitions from making movies that are meant to be seen in theaters and creating movies that we can just watch at home. It seems like every week is a new streaming service. Like I said earlier, HBO Max, very new to the game. However, it's not even the newest one because we just had Peacock be released. That doesn't mean that movies aren't going to be created for theaters anymore. However, I think the momentum that streaming services had picked up the past few years and seeing the current state of the movie theater business right now, I think this is definitely going to tell where movies go for the future. I think we got really comfortable with the way that movies worked. I think we all went to the Thursday night premieres when they got pushed up all the way to 6 p.m. We were well aware that the summer blockbusters were just going to be good popcorn fun. We knew that in December all the good Oscar movies were going to be seen, and then in January and February you almost just don't even go to the movies because that's where studios just drop the stuff that they don't actually want anyone to see. It was a comfortable system that we had in place, and we thought it would last forever, even though this current system hasn't even been around that long. Will this transition be as significant from silent films to talkies? I don't know. I don't really know what the future holds for movie theaters, Hollywood, or any of the film industry. All I know for certain is that things are changing. I hope things get better. I really do. But until then, I guess we just have to keep singing in the rain. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please leave a like. It means a lot, especially for the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe for more content if you want to see more. Thanks for watching.